Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Do you believe that? I know that it's true. My name is Jack Boland, and many years ago, at a time in my life in which I was undergoing a series of changes, I had reached a crossroad in my life. And by some strange but wonderful act of fate, I came across Napoleon Hill's PMA, Science of Success philosophy, and read for my first time that statement. Whatever the mind of man can conceive and believe, it can achieve. And I knew that I had been presented with a universal truth. I went on to become more closely associated with Napoleon Hill's works and the Science of Success philosophy and course, and it so closely approximated what I was already discovering to be the truth of life that I made that philosophy my own, and in the intervening years have shared these principles with scores of people, hundreds of people, and I would even go so far as to say with thousands of people, because I don't believe that I have ever given a talk without incorporating somewhere in that talk one or more of these basic universal laws that are designed to help us to create or to recreate our lives. This evening we will be working with thinking about taking into our minds for consideration the first of 17 success principles as stated by Napoleon Hill, and this one is definiteness of purpose. Definiteness of purpose is the starting point of all achievement. And I want you to remember the statement, because you will hear a lot about it before this evening is over, and certainly before you have finished with the lessons that will be following the one that I'm sharing with you this evening. Definiteness of purpose is the starting point of all achievement, and it is the stumbling block of 98 out of every 100 persons who live upon this planet, because most people have never really defined their goals and what they wish to do with their lives. They are not definite about their purpose for living. Now think that over. 98% of the people of the world are drifting aimlessly through life without the slightest idea of where they're going, what they're fitted for, how they plan to arrive at their destined port. As a matter of fact, they don't think they have a destined port. They are waiting for life to change. They're waiting for something to happen that will alter the course of their destiny, not realizing that they have been given the superb equipment, the tools of the mind that have been designed for their own personal and specific use to determine what it is that their lives will accomplish while they're here upon this planet. Andrew Carnegie was aware of this near tragedy that is a part of our human condition, and it was because of his great interest and love for mankind that he decided to influence some 500 great American leaders of industry and business to collaborate in the organization of what ultimately became Napoleon Hill's PMA, or Positive Mental Attitude, Science of Success philosophy. It was the world's first philosophy of individual achievement. Andrew Carnegie said, "No one has ever been known to succeed without applying the principle of definiteness of purpose." The people who do succeed and always are definite about their purpose in living. Napoleon Hill said, "The world stands aside and makes room for the person who knows where he is going and is on the way." I hope that you will resolve before this class is over this evening to no longer settle for anything short of what you want. Your heart's desires are life's desires for you. And you have been given the mental and the emotional, yes, the spiritual equipment necessary to create the world that you desire. You could not have those desires unless it was possible for you to experience them. Oh, by the way, let me whisper a valuable secret into your ear before we get started. The most important part of this lesson and the other lessons that will follow is already in your own mind. The most important things you will come to understand, you will not hear me say, nor will you read them in the Napoleon Hill Science of Success course. And let me suggest to you that the spoken part of these lessons on tape are only a small part of what is available to you in the course, and so I urge you to take the course. The application form is available for you to sign up to take the full course, because from it you will be able to delve into that great depth of material that will keep your mind moving forward and onward and upward as you develop your own application of this universal philosophy of success. Somewhere in these lessons you will find your other self, your higher self, that infinite part of you which will throw off the chains of limitations which have bound you. There's not a person who lives on this planet who is not bound in a comfort zone of their own making. And the moment that we come in contact with that giant genie of power which is asleep within our own minds, then we begin to establish our own conscious contact with a source of energy and wisdom and strength that is absolutely amazing. But the genie that lies within us is asleep and needs an outer stimulation to awaken it, and that's what these lessons are about. What I say to you is merely designed to awaken something magnificent, wonderful that is within you, something that you already are. Now remember, there can be no evolution of any idea without a starting point in the form of definiteness of purpose, and hence this principle takes first position in this philosophy of personal achievement. Marcus Aurelius, who was a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, said, "Such are thy habitual thoughts, so also will be the character of thy mind. For the soul is dyed the color of your thoughts." And he was telling us that what we think and feel becomes what we experience. What the mind, man, woman can conceive and believe, it not only will achieve, but has been achieving all the days of your life. Your circumstances, your life as you are presently experiencing life, is the result of your present belief system. Nothing in your world can change unless and until your present belief system is altered. We change our lives by changing what we think about life, by changing what we think about ourselves. Life, or what we call life, is but a mirror image. It is a reflection of our thoughts, of our feelings, of our attitude. And this is why that the Napoleon Hill Science of Success philosophy stresses a positive mental attitude, because our state of mind, a state of beingness, becomes our outer experience. Now, since we're talking about how to establish a definite major purpose in one's life, let's take a moment to define what these words mean. And my dictionary tells me that purpose means the object toward which one strives or for which something exists. Your goal, your aim. Do you know that most people living on this planet have not established definite goals? They don't know where they're going, nor do they have any idea how they're going to get there. As I said a few moments ago, we keep waiting for something to happen, for circumstances to change, not knowing that we are the creators of our own circumstance, and that we must stop believing in circumstances in the sense of letting them control and dominate us, but begin to believe that we are in charge of circumstances because we have been given the power to create the very circumstances that our hearts desire. Now, I can tell you this, that if we don't create the circumstances that we want or desire, we will experience the circumstances that we don't want. If we do not make the choice, then we have made a choice. We have decided to not choose and to therefore let conditions form themselves around us. And when that happens, it always works to our discomfort and our disadvantage. The word definite means known positively, for certain, sure. It means clearly defined, precise, explicit. That is really what this lesson is all about. You and me determining for ourselves how we want our lives to be. Becoming aware of the kinds of persons that we know that we're destined to be, but as yet have not clearly demonstrated to ourselves and to other people in the world around us. But beginning to clearly define who we are, what our reasons for being here upon this planet are to us, and coming to believe that our statement is true. Now remember that I said to you a moment ago that the most important part of the lesson is not something that you will hear from me or that you can read on any piece of paper. You cannot read it anywhere unless you write it, because it is out of your own mind that you will discover who you are. And it is from your own inner self that you will be given the images, the pictures, feelings, the impulses, the awareness of what life can become for you. It's there, it's in you, it's waiting. It's waiting to come alive in you, but the starting point of all individualized achievement is the adoption of a definite major purpose in life and a definite plan for its attainment. All individual achievements are the results of a motive or a combination of motives, and the 10 basic motives which inspire all voluntary action are the result of, one, the emotion of love, which is the greatest of all motives. It is associated with our spiritual nature. Number two, the emotion of sex, which is the physical expression of love. And number three, the desire for material gain, for wealth, for the possession of those things that we need. And if you will take these first three emotions and desires, you will discover that they're the three desires that make the world go around. Those three: love, sex, the desire for material gain. Then number four is the desire for self-preservation, which is connected to number three. It is freedom from want and fear. Number five is the desire for freedom of body and mind. It's that part of us that says, I've got to be me. I've got to be free. I can't be controlled or bound or manipulated. It must be free. You know the feeling, don't you? It's an intense feeling. The sixth desire is for self-expression and recognition. Do you know that every form of life on this planet is constantly seeking new ways to express itself? Did you know that? That there's no living form on this planet that is not under the process of growth and change. Build the ever more stately mansions, O my soul, as the swift season rolls. And there's a part of us that wants to be recognized. You know it's true, don't you? You want to be appreciated, to be touched, to share yourself with the world around you, and to have what you share be received with warmth and affection. That is such an important desire. Number 7 is the desire for life after life. And this is the central theme of all religions. It's that desire for immortality, or the continuity of life beyond what we call death. And there are many people who believe that this desire for life after death, since it exists in all persons, must be its own demonstration. It must be true, otherwise we could not have that intense desire. The last two desires are negative or self-defeating. The 8th one is the desire for revenge, and it's basic to all humans in our more primitive condition. It's the primitive law of the jungle, for example. It's the negative mental attitude, the opposite of a positive mental attitude. The desire to get even. Have you not heard yourself from time to time retaliating? Someone said something to you and you walked away and spent the next 3 hours saying something back. Your mind is saying, I'll fix you. That's its mildest form. Is everyone that you know safe to walk the streets of your mind? If they're not, then you're defeating yourself. If they're not, then we have more work to do before we can experience what we wish to experience in our own lives. The desire for revenge is a very negative, self-defeating response that comes from our lower nature. And the 9th, the emotion of fear. There are 7 basic fears, and we'll go into them in a later lesson in the series. Fear will rob you of your personal initiative and will keep you in poverty all the days of your life. And that poverty will take many forms. It will take the form of never having enough of the material things that you need. It will also take the form of being deprived of the love, the warmth, the affection that you need. Because there's a law that says what we greatly fear is what we greatly experience. And later on in the series of lessons, we'll talk about the 7 basic fears and how to eliminate them from our lives. Let me pause for a moment and briefly give an outline that will explain how this science of success philosophy came into being. I mentioned to you a few minutes ago that Mr. Carnegie had become aware of how most people are self-defeating in their responses to life. And he understood that success, by whatever definition that you or I would define the word or the experience of success, is available to every human being. He proved this to his own satisfaction. And Mr. Carnegie had been looking for some 2 or 3 years for a reporter or a writer to interview 500 or more of the outstanding men of his or any other time. One day, he was introduced to Napoleon Hill. I'm getting a little ahead of my story, so let me go back to the time when Dr. Napoleon Hill was introduced to this planet. He was born October the 26th, 1883, in a one-room log cabin in the mountains of Wise County in southwest Virginia, near the spot where John Fox made famous his Trail of the Lonesome Pine. Napoleon Hill was born in poverty, in a poverty-stricken community, and in the first years of his life he did not know of those things that make life meaningful or easy. His mother died when he was 9 years old, and a year later his father remarried, and that was the beginning of a new phase of young Napoleon's life. It was a turning point for him because his stepmother, a wonderful, caring, optimistic person, came into his life and began to tell him of things that he had not dreamed of. She saw the spark of life and of goodness that was in young Napoleon, and she fanned it with the flame of her own love and encouraged him as no one ever had. She told him what he could be and what he could experience. She caused him to believe in himself and to reach beyond himself. She inspired him. She painted pictures in his mind that he came to believe that could become the real reality of his life. And through her influence, he became a newspaper reporter while he was still in his teens, and he supplied local news items to some dozen or more papers throughout the state of Virginia. The originality of his style brought him to the attention of Robert L. Taylor, who was a former governor of Tennessee and the owner of a magazine, who employed Hill to write, now listen to this, success stories about famous people. And the first person that Governor Taylor had Napoleon Hill interview was Andrew Carnegie, one of the richest men in the world, who was waiting for a reporter or a writer to come along to pick up on an assignment that he felt was important for all mankind. Arrangements were made for a 3-hour interview, but Carnegie strung it out for 3 days and for 3 nights, during which time he interviewed Hill. Napoleon Hill thought he was interviewing Mr. Carnegie, but it was the other way around, and finally Carnegie sold Hill on the idea of organizing the world's first philosophy of personal achievement. And then he put the question to him directly. He said, are you willing to take this assignment, number one, if you knew it was going to take you 20 years, and number two, if you knew that you were not going to get paid for doing it? And what would your answer be? Yes, and young Hill did not know that Mr. Carnegie had a stopwatch in his hand, holding it out of sight under a table. He gave Hill 60 seconds to answer. Napoleon responded in 29 seconds. Mr. Carnegie had discovered in his own experience with men and women that a person who's slow to make up their mind is also slow to carry out their assignments. Have you not noticed that in those periods of time or in those areas of your own life where you have difficulty making a decision, that you have equal difficulty establishing any kind of order or progress, that you never seem to get started? Well, he wanted someone that could make up his mind. And so Hill made up his mind and had the assignment, and later when he told his family and friends, they thought he was a little crazy. But it was a very important decision that he made, and also the fact that he was not to receive a salary became perhaps the most serendipitous of all of the things that happened, because he was forced to practice the principles that he began to discover in his interviews with the successful people of his time. And Carnegie did introduce him one by one to the distinguished and successful leaders of business philosophy, politics, the great men of the world at that time. Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, John Wanamaker, Alexander Graham Bell, Woodrow Wilson, Luther Burbank, William Howard Taft, Cyrus Curtis, William Wrigley Jr., Francis DuPont, Charles M. Schwab, J. Pierpont Morgan, E.M. Statler, Harvey Firestone, F.W. Woolworth, George Eastman, J. Ogden Armour, just to name a few, but they were people of that ilk. And you can imagine what began to happen in the consciousness of young Napoleon. He began to take on the stature of the people that he interviewed. He came to believe in the principles, and he, of course, was practicing them. And so in the beginning of World War I, he entered the service and was assigned to Woodrow Wilson's staff as a public relations expert. And then in 1933, he again returned to the White House to become a presidential advisor to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And it was Dr. Hill who gave President Roosevelt the idea for his famed fireside speech, the one in which he said, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." Doesn't that sound like Napoleon? In 1937, Think and Grow Rich was published, immediately captivated the public's interest, and became one of the all-time best-selling books, and one of the three books that has been determined to have influenced the lives of more successful men and women than any other book. As a matter of fact, just last month I saw that it was still listed as the number 7 best-selling book in the world of business, published in 1937. Remarkable, but remarkable because of the principles that it contains. Let's take a moment to examine quickly one or two ideas, and the first one is that any dominating idea, plan, or purpose held in the mind through repetition of thought and emotionalized with a burning desire for its realization is taken over by the subconscious mind and acted upon through whatever natural and logical means may be available for the fulfillment of that desire. Whatever you think of, whatever idea that you hold the palm of the hand of your mind and give power to by feeling or believing that it is true, that idea is accepted by the subconscious or the subjective mind and will ultimately become a living reality. I suppose that you're somewhat familiar with the conception of these two divisions of the mind, and we will go into them in much greater detail again in a later lesson, but for the purposes of this lesson, let's take just a moment to review. The conscious mind is the reasoning or thinking part of our mind. It's the masculine, objective side. It doesn't feel, it thinks. It calculates, it decides, it determines. You might think of the mind as being a gardener and a garden. And the gardener decides what seeds will be sown and in what order, how the garden will be planted. The gardener has a picture, a conception of how the garden should be, how it should look. Flowers, vegetables. How? What will the arrangements be? The gardener, you might say, is the architectural landscape artist who decides how things will look after they have started to grow. But once the seed is planted, once the idea is formed, once the decisions are made, and they're transformed to the subconscious phase of the mind, and that would be like planting the seed or the seedlings or the plants in the soil. And the soil then has its ability to cause them to grow, to nurture, to nourish, to create. So we have these two phases, the part that decides and the part that orders or arranges or causes that which we have made our decision about to come into reality. That's the way the mind works. And this is why it is so important that we determine our own definite major purpose in life. Until we make that decision, and until that decision is ours and firmly, clearly planted in the garden of our own mind, it cannot become a living reality. We keep hoping for something to grow or to develop that has never been sown. Would you in your right mind stand looking at a plowed field hoping that something will grow when you know that no seeds have been planted? Of course not. Why then do we wait for things to appear that we have not caused to exist within the creative part of our own inner self? Now, the subconscious mind appears to be the only doorway of individual approach to infinite intelligence, and it is capable of being influenced by the individual on the basis of faith based upon definiteness of purpose. In other words, if we're going to have faith, we must have faith in something. Not only faith in God or the power that's going to create something, but we have to have faith in the something that's being created, don't we? What do you have faith in? What have you decided upon? What is the path that you're going to follow? Decide. Or if your life has not pleased you, then undecide and redecide. Redetermine how you wish your life to go, and it will take the path that you follow or that you determine. Mr. Hill used so many wonderful examples of famous people in showing how the mind works. And two of those people were Mr. R.G. Letourneau, who he spent a year and a half with, and his reason for wishing to accompany Mr. Letourneau was to learn the secret of his tremendous accomplishments in the field of mechanical engineering. In spite of his lack of formal education for that profession, Mr. Letourneau was an incredible person who knew things that he was never taught. How could he have access to such vast, important knowledge when he never learned it in the university? Mr. Hill watched him one night on a plane doze off on a cot that had been prepared just for that purpose. And about every 20 minutes, Mr. Letourneau would awaken from sleep, reach over and write on a pad, put his head back, go back to sleep, dream a while, and awaken again and repeat the process. You see, he had consciously learned how to turn his mind over to the creative part of the subjective mind. He gave it assignments. He gave it his definite major purpose. He gave it its goals. Ask it to show him how, to give him the information that he needed. That information came and he wrote it down. He followed the instructions. And the wisdom and the power were there. Mr. Letourneau advertised the fact that he took God in as his partner and that his success dates from the forming of this transcendent alliance. He had a mastermind alliance with God and with a number of other people. And so did Thomas Edison. You've heard of his famous cat naps, have you not? When he would doze off and awaken and write things down, that became the ideas that were indigenous to his great inventions. You need no person other than yourself to contact infinite intelligence for the solutions of your own problems. It's a power so great that you can get anything you want in life by using it. And these principles are universal, meaning that anyone can use them. Whatever you want in life, you're capable of obtaining. Do you believe that? I know that it's true. It's important, though, that in preparing your mind to write out your definite major purpose in life, that you, first of all, make up your own mind as to what it is that you desire most out of your life. What do you desire? Not what does someone else desire for you. What do you desire most? And is what you want worth what you will have to pay for it? Remember that In this universe, there's no such thing as a free lunch, or a free breakfast, or a free snack. There's no little snack bar over there on the side that's going to hand out what we want for free. A price will have to be paid, but it is a glorious price. It's a wonderful price. And in time, we will be so glad that we paid that price. But list the objectives you want to obtain. List the information and knowledge you want to acquire. List the kind of work you want to do. List the kind of personality that you want to be. Write down how much you want to earn and receive each year. List the places you want to visit and to see. The skills, the arts, the crafts, the sciences you wish to master, and what you're willing to do to achieve all of these. You should have one high, desirable, outstanding goal and keep it ever before you. You can have many goals as long as they're not in conflict with your major definite purpose. It's advisable to have immediate, intermediate, and distant objectives. But when you set a definite major goal, be sure that you know that you will be led to recognize that goal and that you will achieve it. Determine to fix in your mind exactly what you desire. Be definite. Evaluate and determine exactly what you will give in return. Set a date which you expect to achieve the good that you seek. Identify your desire with a definite plan for carrying out and achieving your objective, and put that plan into action at once. Take the first steps into action. Do it now. Don't hesitate. Don't postpone. Don't vacillate. Go into action immediately. Clearly define your plan for achievement and write out exactly and concisely what you want. And each and every day, morning and evening, read your written statement aloud. And as you read it, see it, feel it, and believe it. Wrap it around yourself. Let it encompass you. Let it become a living part of you. Mr. Hill asked Andrew Carnegie, many years after he came to know him, if he still followed the habit of writing down his major purpose. And he said, I followed that habit many years ago while I was struggling to make the change from day laborer to industrial management. Moreover, I went much farther than merely reading my written statement of my major purposes. I met with my mastermind group regularly, and I shared with them in open discussions the purpose of the plans that I had decided were my definite major goal. He said, I have continued to do this all the days of my life, and I shall as long as I live. That's why he was so successful. The very crux of this whole philosophy is founded upon this one principle of having a definite goal, having a plan for attaining that goal, writing it out, and repeating it many times daily. This is what Napoleon Hill said. One of the great practitioners of the art of the science of success is W. Clement Stone. An executive, philanthropist, civic leader, publisher, and a 1981 Nobel Peace Prize nominee. Mr. Stone's success philosophy is carried to millions of people through self-help books and articles that he's written, through his magazine, Success Unlimited. And Mr. Stone reassuringly tells others how he built a multi-million-dollar empire and accumulated a personal fortune of some $400 million by combining merchandising expertise with his concept of a positive mental attitude. At the same time, he has instructed thousands of people on how they too can become successful in their lives by using similar methods. Senate Majority Leader Howard H. Baker, Jr., 2 U.S. Senators, former President Gerald Ford, and former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, and the leaders of several international organizations joined in nominating Mr. Stone for his 1981 Nobel Peace Prize. And in reporting on this nomination, the New York Daily News and the Chicago Sun-Times had this to say. W. Clement Stone has dedicated his life to the philosophy of that which you can share multiplies. He has given tangible hope for a better tomorrow to thousands of human beings, has positively affected the lives of the disadvantaged, the incarcerated, and the young and the old. In an interview that I had with Mr. Stone just a short time ago, I asked him these questions. And he answered me in this way. What has Napoleon Hill's Science of Success system meant to you? What impact, what role has it
Well,
played in your
actually,
life?
Napoleon Hill was in my employ for a period of 10 years. And in answer to the Science of Success course, with our insurance company combined, it was a means of making super salesmen, super executives. In other words, this particular work is a base that those who are professionally have been in the field have been able to go to these principles and help their patients.
You've seen that happen in the lives of many other people. The success principles have worked effectively in your life. Has your life been founded on these success principles?
Absolutely, and by virtue of my work and his work, we were able to come out with a combination that was even superior. However, the Science of Success is something that if anyone will take that course, they're bound to be helped.
Two of the success principles, at least two, but certainly two of the 17 success principles were the ones that you introduced into that system. Is that correct? One was how to tap the powers of the subconscious mind, and you were talking about that principle.
Yes, the two principles that are actually being taught that will affect the entire future of the world and are affecting many throughout the world today, whether they're in business or whatever their vocation might be, are one, how to recognize, relate, assimilate, and apply principles from what you see, hear, read, think, learn, experience, and from other disciplines so as to achieve any goal whatsoever that doesn't violate universal law. The other is how to use your conscious mind to tap the powers of the subconscious. In other words, you have a human computer from which the electronic computer was built as to functioning, whereby if you learn how to use your conscious mind properly to tap the powers of the subconscious through repetition, 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 you can in due course change bad habits into good habits, but something more. You are really, when you get experienced, as I am, are in touch with universal powers. In other words, you can actually communicate with those in distant lands or achieve, as I said before, any goal you desire that doesn't violate universal law.
Did I understand correctly you to say, Mr. Stone, that you are in contact with universal powers?
That's right.
Did you hear that? Is it possible for every person who is seated here this evening to be in contact with universal powers?
It is absolutely possible, but there's a price they must pay, and that is to be willing to think and learn step by step. You don't jump 10 steps at once, you remember.
But it is possible for every person, through a progressive series of developing of the powers of their own mind.
That's right.
They can be in conscious contact with the universal powers.
Right, but they have to pay a price and do it. It's action, not just thinking.
And they have to do it now.
Right.
How did you come to be involved with Napoleon Hill?
Well, actually, I read the book Think and Grow Rich when it first came out, and the philosophy in so many respects corresponded with my own. That, and I had a sales organization those days, an agency operating most of the United States, and I sent the book, bought the book, sent it to all of my representatives. Bingo! We hit the jackpot.
Love it. Is it?
And then in '52, we met for the first time, and to make a long story short, we formed an organization, Napoleon Hill Associates, and which is my corporation, and he was in my employ.
And that corporation still exists. And what is the purpose of that corporation to this day?
Well, right now, the purpose is to change the world, make it a better world for this and every future generation.
And you're actively moving forward to carry these principles to our school system?
Not only in school systems, but in every discipline with governments, certainly in business, you just name it, clergy.
And the prison systems also.
We've reduced recidivism down to 15%, where at the time we were evaluated, for every 100 men released in the other prisons in the vicinity, 87 came back.
How far reaching are your personal goals at this time? 6 months, a year, 5 years?
Well, I'll tell you what, I looked at my crystal ball before I came in, and I'm going to live to be past 107 because that is a goal that's achievable through PME.
And that's the way it really is.
This program is continued on the opposite side.